Trust me, the internet back during the Gamergate days is a space so unfathomably inhospitable
Why I Left the Left by Vaush.
to them that they cannot fathom it. So many of them.
I feel like Xander and Vaush saying this can happen again. It's like somebody coming down to your corner store and they're saying, wow, this is really a great business that you have here. Geez, it'd be a shame if anything bad were to happen to it. It almost feels like a shakedown.
Remember, like, during BLM in summer of 2020, I saw like a lot of things that was like, it was like sort of empty sort of performative white wokeness. Sure, that's definitely something that happens, but I
Meow, meow.
I don't see that as necessitating the completely ignoring the bad things that do happen to racialized creators. And I think like the overstep there, or the what gets missed there, is the things that do happen in subject of, well, like, you know, this person is only defending you. Like, I mean, I showed it in my tweets. Like, I'm pointing out, like,
I promise you I'm reading you, even though I'm not reading all of you off. Just like, I'm not used to chat moving this fast.
Things that I
This
feel
is
are
good though. This is really
bad, and
good. This
people
is
are immediately
great.
jumping to the claim that, oh, you're only doing this because this is a person of color. And it's like that, if that conclusion is being drawn before actually like taking a second to reflect on what is being done that potentially could be perceived as harassment, I
can't
take
open
issue
it, chat.
with
I can't
that
open.
and like
Can
this
you
framing that, you know,
chat?
oh,
Can you open this for
minorities
me?
on the left are being protected by the, you know, people who
Can you open
have
this
like
for
these
me?
white woke fantasies or whatever. Again, we
I'm gonna break
operate
my
in different
nail.
spaces, so I assume you probably see more of that than I do. I'm sure that's the case, but I do take issue with that being the initial claim on things where people are calling out like things they perceive to be bad behavior against minorities, and then the immediate jump is, well,
Okay,
you're only saying
I can do
that
this. I
because
can do
they're
this.
a person of color. Like, do you see an issue with that at all?
Oh my god.
Well, if it was unwarranted,
God,
but
okay,
then
there we
why
go.
is it that the conversation between myself and Professor Flowers is always supposed to be
Yay.
like a white guy talking down to a black woman? That's how everyone talks about it. Pardon me for my liberal colorblindness, but I feel like no matter what a person's race is, they have a ability to speak on an issue with an equal
Meow.
degree of potential quality. And we were both talking about indigenous issues, which neither of us are, so it wasn't even really relevant to that. It seemed odd to me. And this was framed constantly. You talked about two white guys debating, you know, this, that, the other, white genocide theory on stream. It's always framed that way. The id poll is always lurking. And I know one of the biggest criticisms that I get, which is part of like a broad package of criticisms, is that I am, and you said this, sort of an
Id poll is
archetype
lurking.
of left-adjacent white supremacy. That my political positions might be progressive, some people deny even that, but even though they are, I still maintain the chauvinistic perspective of a person who is held by the trappings of white supremacy. Now, I don't think my behavior warrants this. I think my skin tone is what warrants it. Because I don't think my behavior corresponds to this assumption at all. And I see all these defenses that get brought out for people who I consider indefensible. I won't speak of Professor Flowers again here, but like, my God. And this isn't the biggest issue in the world.
Indefensible.
Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
she's super
but
dangerous.
It's certainly worth considering, especially if it's leading us to arrive at really bad political positions. I don't know what utility we get from Professor Flowers' analysis that I wasn't casually bumping off on my stream.
Both making the same argument from opposite perspectives, both saying it's bad to make the exact argument. So weird. ID poll is when you say something bad about white people.
Before I even knew who she was. But there's a lot of vitriol.
We're just
that she
asking
can provide
questions.
that
We're
I
just,
can't.
yeah.
I know that much.
I mean, yeah. So to the idea
Just
that
asking
like,
questions.
everyone should be held to the same standard
Just
of harassment,
asking
vitriol, I
questions.
totally
Yeah,
agree.
beware of the dangerous black folks, basically.
I
Basically,
can't like speak to any of the earlier claims to that.
is
like
what
you
chat
mentioned, but I
said,
maintain
and
that
I just read out about Vaush.
like the perception of what is and isn't id poll seems to be like
Watch that get clipped anyway.
so
Watch that
kind
get
of
clipped.
embedded to the point where
Yeah, apparently there's
like I
there's
said,
people
that's
trying to
the
clip
first
chump me.
reaction to criticism against
And
people
they
that
have
are like
really
perceived to be
scraped the
harming people of
bottom
color,
of the
and that's just
barrel.
what I take issue with.
It's a
Really.
narrative. I mean, of course, one of the biggest criticisms that I get is like I'm a white debate bro, so it's a narrative that's supported by the explicit text of the people I'm accusing of being a part of that narrative. But yeah, of course, we're talking off inference here. I can't open up people's minds and know why they do what they do. I can only notice these patterns. And I think they're unfortunate too, because sometimes they lead to behavior that I actually do consider to be kind of prejudiced.
It's borderline
couched
unwatchable.
in woke rhetoric. Like when you referred to the indigenous
rhetoric.
rights activist I brought on my stream
You and your woke rhetoric.
as being there to make me look right. And
So let me clarify there, because
Please.
I wasn't aware that she had reached out to come onto the stream. I guess I assumed that it was the reverse, that like someone from the Discord had brought her on. But the fact
Ooh,
I was definitely like off the mark in
good
that,
idea.
and so that again, like
We welcome
my
clip simps.
intent there was to say like, and first I clarified like, that is an objectively good thing to have happen. That perspective deserves to be there and should always be there. But like, and like this could be a moot point that you've talked with indigenous activists in the past before.
Some
as
really
you
good
showed.
propaganda videos.
I again wasn't aware of that because I think you said the video had been privated, the other debate, but
Yes.
it just struck me as
I'm just
like,
dancing to this
you could be calling this
copyright-free
nitpicking, and
lo-fi.
that would totally be fine. But it struck me as odd that the immediate response to the Professor Flowers debate was the only time, aside from the privated video, that an indigenous activist had been brought on. And again, like
I
you,
brought Lance on. Lance speaks on indigenous issues quite a lot, disproportionate amount. He cares about them a lot.
A disproportionate amount?
I mean,
why,
yeah, I
why
mean,
would you say
all- that's
disproportionate?
All good. I just wanted to clarify that.
Gosh, hasn't the word disproportionate actually gotten you in trouble in the recent past?
Was definitely not like that was an inference that I took that wasn't
Lance.
like correct, basically.
I get that. I just feel I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that in
Yeah.
the convo that I had with the indigenous rights activists after Professor Flowers, the fact that she had approached me was something which was brought up in the conversation directly. So I can't expect you to watch all of my content. That would be a ridiculous burden
Yes.
of proof.
Listen,
But
I've watched all of content.
assumptions made betray
All
biases.
of content.
Even if I had reached out to her, is she just the token? Because she is an actual land back activist. I mean, like, actually involves. Professor Flowers is not. But
Right.
in a sentence, her contribution, and you never really
Oh my
said
God.
or explained that she
Fucking
thought
love
Professor
soda.
Flowers
I don't know
said
why I love it so
monstrously
much,
bad
chat. I
things,
have to
but
give up.
in a sentence,
Energy
her
drink's bad.
contribution was reduced to brought on to make the white man look good. And this is, of course, I mean, the Cecler, the other Cecler, C-O-O-N, this is the quintessential criticism of the turncoat black person, or I guess in this case, indigenous person. It's something that I've seen before from people who were very progressive on some issues and very lacking in others. And it's frustrating because it seems like in an effort to preserve
It
the
isn't as
perceived
fun as water. Water's
legitimacy
pretty
of
cool.
Professor Flowers,
Water's
you had
pretty
to
cool.
not only delegitimize the actual activist I brought on,
I
you
really like
also had to
sparkling
not
water.
make it clear that she disagreed
I'm a princess.
explicitly with Professor Flowers. You framed it as her coming on to teach me
Sorry.
and my audience, which she did. Don't get me wrong, but she messaged me because Professor Flowers said horrible shit. She wasn't the only one who emailed me either. I got professors from universities. That video got a lot of views, man. People took attention. And always the same. I can't believe these are the people representing land back activism. You know? Like, I can't believe Professor Flowers is the one people are going to think
But
of.
she's not.
Something
She
I
wasn't
had struggle
trying
with, too,
to.
afterwards, you know?
She was
Like,
specifically
people in my
trying not
community.
to
I feel like
speak-
I have to do damage control for people
my
I
God.
don't like. It's actually really, like, humiliating, you know? Like, I have to scamper around my community being like, guys, okay,
No, dude, you did the damage. You're not doing damage control. Okay, get it straight.
they're not all that bad. Like, land back, this is it's a good thing. Like, it's not, it's I swear to God, like, land back activists aren't like this, you know? And I have to like massage it
Oh
over,
my
but I'm doing this for people I
God.
don't even like. So it's like, it's so frustrating. But I wish you had played the stuff she said about Professor Flowers.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, it was a mistake to frame her participation in that way, and I wouldn't. I mean, I would have changed that if I would have like thought that through. I kind of threw that in at the last minute, but I mean, with regards to, I forget, actually, I completely forget what you just said at the end.
Oh shit.
Oh, with regards to her perspective on the issue. I mean, yeah, again, like
The other thing that I've seen like people on our side do when they engage with these debate bros is like, okay, so like you got to realize if you're going to do this, it takes a lot of nerve. Okay? So you got to be really centered. And you got to be in a good space mentally when you engage, right? It's like being like, you know, even saying like, just a second, I got to get a drink of water because like my, right? Even that is like a point deducted. Like legit. That's how debate works, right? That's it's sad, but it's true. And, you know, things like this, right, is a human thing to do. Wait, what were we just talking about? No, I do that fucking all the time. You can't do that in a debate though. You got to pretend you know. Or change the subject or something else. Like you can't, you know, you can't do this because this actually does like lose you the debate. It'll, you know, and in a debate like this is going to be what they point back to. They'll meme it, right?
My disagreement is with the language, the inflammatory language that was being used around land back, right? And so, like, would you say that you elevating the land back rhetoric to a question of potential genocide, would you say that contributes to inflammatory rhetoric, or was that Professor Flower's fault?
No, she didn't engage in any land back activists. She was the one promoting the genocide.
I bet you Vaush does it all the time too. I bet you Vaush forgets what the fuck he was talking about, but he find it there. You just sort of learn techniques to cover up for it. As bad as that is.
That's not on me. I was trying to detach the two. By associating the two, she's the one causing harm to that movement. I feel like we have a moral obligation for the sake of indigenous people to push back against language like that, because the last thing indigenous people need is a bunch of, you know, chest puffing.
Oh, he hides behind. I forgot what I said.
Twitter leftists running around screeching about how, with regards to how these conversations typically go wrong, I do think a lot of it is a narrative-based thing. The issue is that a lot of people do view me as some kind of big bad, scary antagonist, a person who's representative of the rot in the online left, and also, because people constantly talk about this alleged harassment from my community, a person who mobilizes this massive wave of hate that people will get after, which, again, I've seen the comments under Professor Flower's video. There are people who are angry at her. I didn't see anything I would characterize as harassment, and her subs have gone up, so, you know,
he thinks he's scary.
The industrial complex of anti-Vaushites, you know, continues to produce to this day.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way. My video's popping off.
Of course. But no, people perceive me as
man,
this villain,
there's one point for Noah. There's one point for Noah.
To be kowtowing to
there we
a bunch
go.
of associated positions that they don't agree with, you know. So often, you did it in this in this conversation. There are a number of statements. Thank you.
Okay, there's two. Because chat, if you remember from the video, like Noah like notices when Vaush burps, and I did the same thing because like I think it got paused right when he burped, and I was like, "Excuse you," and Noah reacted too.
There are a number of statements I could make which would be factually correct.
Okay, so
which
2
neither
points for
of us
Noah.
should shy away from, because we're
Too
both
low-key,
educated enough to
covert
understand the
owns.
education, the positions which led to this, you know? You can talk about, in a leftist space, with no fear whatsoever of being misconstrued, about crime statistics, about IQ averages, and I'm good at talking about these things because a lot of lefties leave them on the table. Too bad. They don't want to talk about it. It's a touchy subject. But when you look deeper into
the left doesn't want to talk about the inherent difference between
there's always reasons why, right? You get more educated.
Oh my God.
And all of a sudden, it just becomes a preliminary fact that allows you to then follow through with interesting and
White is a social construction.
Informative information.
Small.
But when I did that with you,
it doesn't have the capacity of Gamergate.
It's like you were waiting to be trapped. I'm not trying to trap anyone. You and I both know the basic demographic statistics that people on the right will throw out in an effort to prove adjacent but not identical points about inherent behavior between groups. I've argued against these things so many times, but there's that fear. Like being even next to these, like getting close to the abyss, taints a person. Like what you did with the Nazi thing. Jews, banks, it's true. You can read up on Jewish history. There was disproportionate control. A lot of that was just because of anti-Semitism.
Vaush, we're having a Kingdom Hearts conversation. Let's be real, okay? We're talking about darkness. We're talking about darkness. And some people would say that even glimpsing the darkness taints you. And I will agree with you that it doesn't, okay? But what is the thing in every Kingdom Hearts? You have to learn to control your darkness, or it will control you. You don't just like be like, yeah, I'm fucking edgy. I hang out with this fucking, yeah, no, you're not on top of it. That's the thing. Like, I get it. Like, look, I think we're stronger when we don't pretend that edginess doesn't exist, right? When we don't pretend, you know, like, and everybody has ways that you can be edgy without shitting on other groups. Mainly, like, you know, what we're talking about is like gallows humor, right? You know, if I make a joke about my trans experience, it's, you know, it's a little edgy. It might make some people uncomfortable, but it's different than like Vaush making jokes about titty skittles on Twitter, right? That's not his, you know, trauma to, I mean, not that titty skittles are really trauma, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not his experience. It's not his, like, you know, trauma to joke about, right? So, like, I mean, I will grant, like, right, that there's some people that have a purity complex, sure. But I think that people that have, like, a fucking darkness edgy boy fetish are objectively more deleterious, and yes, Vaush, that's how you pronounce that word, to the movement.
Pushed into those fields. I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging it. In fact, I think there's an implicit anti-Semitism in denying it. I have Jewish fans who are on Twitter getting called anti-Semitic for correcting Gentiles on their history. That's pretty fun.
Okay,
so
now listen, here's the thing though, he's wrong about this, right? Bad Empanada and President Sunday went through this, right? They went through the numbers, like, right? President Sunday tried to prove it with numbers, with statistics, couldn't do it, right? And there's a historical context that's being missed. So I think I know where Vaush is coming from. And I'm gonna be charitable and say it's not a place of anti-Semitism, right? It's probably a place of having heard certain historical facts, but not having a good sense of their context, right? So it is a fact that in some European countries that banking was, you know, categorized as usury. See, that's a word I might actually mess up on. It was categorized as usury, and thus, like, Christians weren't supposed to engage in that, right? And so, you know, they when they needed bankers, you know, it was in fact, some places, you know, you that was like the only thing you could do as a Jewish person, right? Or there were reasons historically that Jewish people were kind of, you know, sort of drafted into this role, right? But what Vaush is missing is that those laws were rolled back prior to, like, I think World War I even, right? And so it doesn't really apply to the situation in Germany the way that he thinks it does. Like, he's just wrong. And I know that he thinks and the reason that he thinks he's right, and the reason he thinks he's getting this disagreement, he thinks that what I'm saying is like a reflex. Is like, no, but that can't be possibly true, because if that's true, then those Nazis would be justified. And like, he thinks that we think that. He is not listening. Okay? Because I haven't heard anybody say that. That's not what's being put forward, right? What's being put forward is that there's a little bit more nuance than he recognizes. And, you know, in terms of the timeline, you know, he's the claim that he made, that he was saying that the Nazis might have sided, right? That he says is not justifiable. It does not justify, you know, what they did, right? So you know, he'll sort of hang his hat on the fact that he reaches the right conclusion. He reaches a non-racist, a non-genocide supporting conclusion, right? But he gets there with a premise that's just fucking historically wrong. And he's so fucking proud of thinking that he's the only one with the balls to state historical fact, when it's like, yeah, like, I mean, like, you're thinking of a different time period, buddy. You're thinking of an entirely different time period, right? And you haven't really looked into this. You're just making assumptions based on something that you heard and then over applied. And that is the problem with like so many of these debate bros, right? Is that they have ignorance, which is overconfident, because there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. Okay, you start off as ignorant. We are all the fool. We're all the fool dancing by the cliff, right? And it's only through life that we gain experience and we find out that there's a cliff there and I might not want to fall over it, and you know, right? But it's you know, there's nothing wrong with being ignorant, but what the real problem is the combination of the pride with the ignorance, right? And that comes from privilege. I hate to say it, but that's where it comes from. That's how you're able to develop like that. Privilege and having your ignorance reinforced when you want it.
I think like I
can't we just
misinterpreted
stop being so nice?
How that point was being construed.
Me, I'm way too
again, I saw and I
hubris
agree with the point that like uncomfortable statistics shouldn't be ignored because they, you know. Okay, so I guess I'll just say this, like, the Zizek quote that I used, I think does back up your point that you make later on in that video, which is that if we're even, you know, talking about the statistics, like you are, if you're even like debating it on the morality of it at a level of statistics, then you've lost the debate. But you bringing in the statistics doesn't necessarily, you know, contradict what that statement says. So I think I misinterpreted that in a sense. So I would agree that like the data, you know, these things shouldn't be just ignored. My issue was with like how non-compete was framed as being you know, having been exposed by the rhetoric, and I mean that might be something that you stand by, but having been exposed by the rhetoric and hanging up because people figured out that he was a Nazi, and that was the characterization I saw all over the place, which was just like, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you'd probably agree with that, non-compete.
It's a little ridiculous. It's in the ballpark of being ridiculous, maybe. Part of it was a joke because he was very adamant in misrepresenting me through a clip chimp. So, you know, I thought it was funny to do it back, which I don't apologize for. But fundamentally, though,
is he saying that non-compete hanging up on him right then was a clip chimp? Is that what he thinks? I took it as like Vaush thinks he's just stating historical fact that he can then interpret in a non, you know, genocide supporting way, but he is unknowingly perpetuating a lie and a trope. And therefore I will hang up the phone because I don't want this perpetuated over my, you know, platform. That's what I interpreted non-compete's quitting the call as.
It is indicative of something. In his case, he didn't seem to believe in the value of an ethical system. And if you don't have a consistent ethical system, what that really means is that something's
I'm not sure about that.
You're not smart enough to know what it is, or you're dishonest.
Listen, I'm not actually sure about that. Now, Vaush is saying that this is like because non-compete wasn't engaging with him on the level that he was trying to engage with non-compete, that there is no ethical system present. I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I think that,
you know,
like, I mean, the thing is that the thing that Vaush doesn't get is that like nobody else thinks that you're entitled to like interrogate them. That is a debate bro conceit. This idea, right? That you can kind of drive the conversation like that wherever you want to, and if you want to interrogate somebody's ethical system, you just start popping off like weird hypothetical questions, right? That's not a universally accepted thing. In fact, it's actually considered rude by most people, right? And so, you know, that's what you ran into, right?
There's nothing
Not somebody with a lack of an ethical system.
wrong with not having a coherent ethical system, but he was arguing against the idea of having one, arguing instead that understanding material reality would be sufficient for understanding whether
I
something.
think what he was arguing is that the part that you're missing is like just engaging with the facts on the ground. Let's take material conditions out of the picture just to avoid arguing about, you know, a difference in definitions or understanding or whatever, right? Let's just say the facts on the ground. That your conversation, your hypotheticals are going on in such disconnection with the facts on the ground that they're essentially useless.
Was ethical or not. But knowing what things are and what things should be are two very different problems. And I was trying to illustrate that point by indicating that
Vaush is
depending on
Dr.
how you
Logic.
wanted to, he's
Time for your
material
checkup.
material conditions, you know, depending on what information you're exposed to, material conditions might lead you to some pretty reprehensible positions if you're only deriving a sort of is-ought, gapless, you know, ethical process. Whereas the Chad leftist, you know, they should be able to believe everything the Nazis believed empirically through misinformation, but then disagree with the Nazis ideologically. That would be the perfect person, wouldn't they? A person who bought every bit of propaganda they ever heard and then rejected all of the assumptions made from it. Because even with all of the misinfo they were fed, they were still principled enough to say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Targeting people based on essentializations of their racial group is actually really destructive. Nice. See, I brought it around. It's almost like I'm the video essayist with my script.
Straight up.
Very destructive, which is by that essentialism, they do that shit too.
Yeah, that was very destructive to the audio.
Very, very dangerous. That kind of behavior, but it can be categorically opposed.
I mean, unless you've got your compressor and limiter and everything, like, which probably you do. Probably you have your audio set up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can't possibly clip, like really clip. But if you were to clip, yeah, that would be, you know, you're not gonna get that. You can't fix that in post, right?
By fighting back against things the Nazis did, even if they're not being done by a group adjacent to the Nazis. Hence the comparison. What does a Nazi make? You know, you can get that mindset. It's not all, you know,
The chat's saying delete the vid, Noah.
schnitzel and beer and
Delete the vid.
and you know, uniforms, right? I mean, there are ethical presumptions
Delete the vid.
that they relied upon to bring about their outcomes, and you could find those anywhere. I mean, anywhere in the world. You can find those in American fundamentalist conservatives. You can find those in Marxist-Leninists.
The whole chat. The whole chat is just like, delete the vid.
Indigenous people in Africa, or in people living in like former plantations in Africa. You can find them anywhere and everywhere, right? So you have to fight back against those.
Delete the
ideas.
vid, Noah.
Nazis
Delete the
themselves are
vid.
just a temporal fluctuation, a bump on a wavelength.
So tired of this essentialization of racial groups nonsense. No one is saying that all white people are colonizers, but it cannot be denied that all modern colonizers are white.
They're now, but they're not going to be forever. But the problems that made Nazis Nazis are eternal flaws in human thinking that have to be opposed categorically.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, on all that. So,
Hence the comparison.
yeah.
Vaush's chat is Karening out.
My brain sort of started dying at the end of that. But no, like I agree.
Yeah, that's
I
the
totally
other
agree
thing
with
too.
the
Okay,
point
so
that,
they've been at this for how long now? What is it, like an hour and 15 minutes? Yeah, an hour and 15 minutes. Right. So to a lot of people, this is a long period of time to engage in one conversation nonstop, right? For Vaush, this is nothing. So here's another reason not to go. like just I want if the only thing that can come from this is some creator sees this and they realize in what ways and to what degree they're disadvantaged in this situation, I feel like, you know, mission accomplished, right? because that's really what I'm trying to draw a line under. I'm not judging anybody for debating Vaush, right? I could see why it would seem like a good idea. I could see why people, you know, get drawn into this. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a mistake, but I do not judge people for not seeing that from the outside. I'm just trying to provide as much of a sense of what's going on in these spaces and why it feels like you're playing an unfair game, because you are. You are playing a very unfair game.
Like, yeah, no, I agree. I'm pretty tired.
No,
were
I
there
understand. Live streaming for any length of time, even short lengths, is tiring.
Even gaming is fucking hard. I was streaming Dark Souls, and I guess like one time I played for a while, but like that shit is tiring actually. So
it is. Also, it's Dark Souls. It can be frustrating sometimes.
Right.
I understand where a lot of the arguments against me come from, but I feel like it's the staircase, right? You know, you build one after another, and I'm at a point right now where, while I enjoy talking to you sincerely on stream and just casually in DMs, a ton of people online are never going to believe a fucking word after my mouth or out of my mouth. I am incapable of reaching a large portion of people who dislike me. In this respect, actually, the far right is more amenable to me than the far left, because the far left will ignore me as a categorical rule, whereas the far right will sometimes enjoy my content as I debate people they agree with. The far left, the people who dislike me, they don't come and watch the Professor Flowers debate. They hear other people talk about it, and then they form their assumptions based off those tweets. The far right will watch.
I have to say, don't talk to the media or avoid shit like the our anti-work meltdown. But need to start saying the same things with Vaush.
Watch me debate their Nazis, and I can reach them that way. So there's this increasingly large group of people who I will never be able to reach on the left, and I feel like so many of them are vulnerable because they have no fucking idea how bad it would be without, if not me, the things that allow me to exist. Trust me, the internet back during the Gamergate days is a space so unfathomably inhospitable
Why I Left the Left by Vaush.
to them that they cannot fathom it. So many of them. And it can happen again. And I think Xanderhall's right when he says this can happen again. In the presence of people like me, not me specifically, because I suck. You could find people who do a better job of what I do, sure.
I feel like Xander and Vaush saying this can happen again. It's like somebody coming down to your corner store and they're saying, wow, this is really a great business that you have here. I love what you've done with it. I love the beautiful glass windows here. Geez, it'd be a shame if anything bad were to happen to it. You know what? Maybe you could pay me for protection and I could make sure that nothing bad does happen to it, right? We maintain this wonderful little business that you created here for just a low, low price, right? It almost feels like a shakedown. It almost feels like an implicit threat, right? Because, like, I don't know where your loyalties lie on the SJW shitlord question, right? I'm not entirely sure.